All right. Just give me a second to make this go live. If anyone's tuned in already. Okay, so here we go. The first thing you want to do when you come into a game, especially particularly as support Morgana, if you've picked it into a bottom lane with as medium amount of kill pressure as Thresh Ezreal, is you want to make sure that you start Spell Thieves Edge, which Steven did, because it's going to be a giant gold generation. It's going to generate a lot of gold, and since the lane doesn't have a whole lot of potential to all in you early, since Morgana's Spell Shield can save Jinx from mispositioning, I think Spell Thieves Edge over anything else like Ruby Crystal, or I guess not Duran Shield anymore, but over Ruby Crystal is a good call. One thing I outlined in my Vayne analysis as the game is shaking up, against Thresh Ezreal, getting level 2 is pretty important, just because when they get level 2, Thresh has the ability to zone your ADC off creeps, and so what Morgana's going to want to do at level 1, if she can get away with it, especially, is it may even be a good idea to take W first, and this is under advisement since they're invading right here, and she should probably take Q first, definitely. But if they weren't invading, I would advise taking W just to W the backline of caster creeps, and push the lane faster for Jinx so that she gets level 2 first and she can farm safely without being poked down by Ezreal or without being in a giant danger of getting hooked into a massive creep wave that Thresh and Ezreal have managed to stack up if they do indeed get level 2 first. But since they're invading, getting Q first was a good idea. Although, one tip in particular that I have would be, and this is kind of a general game thing, just don't take a point into your Q or W if you can get away with it, or E, until you see the opportunity to use it. So like I would not have my Q skilled up right here yet, which Steven does, but I wouldn't, just because if you can skill it up fast enough and then shoot it accurately, it's can be beneficial, especially, I mean, not necessarily on a champ like Morgana where starting Q first isn't a giant deal, but on a champ like, hypothetically, like Thresh, if you are invading and you want to take your E first in most situations, but you're invading and you have to take your Q, I wouldn't take the Q unless you can guarantee a skill shot hit, just because it can give you a little bit of a disadvantage level 1. But all in all, I think this is a pretty good invade, just because their team isn't really reacting to it and they in the proper way, in that they sent their Ezreal to go help the Xin Zhao for some reason, which means that he's going to be missing out on a lot of creeps down here. So what I would do right here specifically is, oh, Ezreal's middle. Oh, my bad. Okay, well then. What I would do right here specifically is, yeah, so she tries to land a binding, but what I would do right here specifically is I would totally ignore the Twitch and the Thresh, just because Twitch and Thresh have a little bit higher level 1 fighting ability than Jinx and Morgana, simply because Jinx doesn't really have an ability at level 1, especially given that she took Q first. Q isn't really an ability, it just switches the form of your auto and it changes the damage a little bit, but it's really not an ability, which gives her major damage disadvantage to Twitch, who has Expunge. So you don't want to be fighting this lane level 1, you just want to be trying to push. You just want to be trying to push as hard as you can. But I mean, all in all, it wasn't a terrible trade, except for that by landing the Q, you kind of bait your Jinx a little bit into aggression, which doesn't need to be happening, and then lose out on an advantage in the lane that you would have otherwise acquired by just pushing. But, I mean, it's not life-threatening, and they did burn summoners, whereas Jinx, I don't believe, did. Yeah, Jinx didn't burn any summoners, so it's not like you're at a major disadvantage. But again, if you had not tried to land the binding, and that's just an aggression thing, but if you had not tried to land the binding and fight early, then you might have be in an advantage in this lane right now and might be pushing on the Thresh and the Twitch, which is kind of, I think, beneficial in this case, especially considering that Thresh started Hook, which means that if he misses it and you have level 2 first, basically you can just kill them. But I mean, he's one thing I'd like to touch on here is that I'm not sure if whether or not Morgana is going to die here or bait the Twitch into dying, which she looks like she might have. But I wouldn't, under any circumstances, advise fighting a lane when, like, engaging a fight on a lane when they have HP advantage on you like that. But that said, she may have just baited the Twitch into dying, so we'll see if this shakes out to be a good idea. Yeah, that was really excellent, and I'm actually surprised that you didn't die to poison. So that makes that really fantastic play. The Jinx didn't necessarily need to, not to critique her play too much, but she didn't necessarily need to tank all those creeps. She could have just ran into the bush and knocked them off. But the one thing that and this was kind of that aggression right there in that fight was kind of forced upon you by the Twitch getting in a position where he could be killed and whatnot. But the thing that I would be wary of is if you can control whether or not you fight at this point in the game, then try not to fight when there's about to be a giant creep wave stacked up at your tower, because even if you win the fight, your ADC is still missing creeps on creeps on creeps and creeps, and like 15 kills or 15 creep kills equals 1 kill, and if she misses 7 of them for a 300 gold kill, or if you accidentally steal the kill, it just I tend to think that as a support and an AD carry, the more guaranteed gold that you can get, the better. So I would opt for killing these creeps under tower rather than trying to fight. Although that was not necessarily the case in that they didn't have a choice there, but under most circumstances I would opt not to fight if there are creeps to be missed out upon. But otherwise, that was a really nice binding and a really, really good job by Steven to bait the threat or bait the Twitch into dying and give her Jinx kills, you know. Okay, so here, as the lane shakes back up and the supports and AD carries get back into their lane, what you as a support should be doing, since you essentially as a support levels 1 through 5 have to carry your AD carry, especially an AD carry like Jinx through the lane, because like all she's really going to be doing is following up on your moves, since it's very hard for Jinx to engage herself unless she lands a W into an E, which gives her the ability to engage. So she has to be playing off of your moves, and right now as a support, you should recognize that you have the ability to be very aggressive on this Twitch and zone him out of creeps, and also try to poke him down by landing your QW on him. And the reason that you should be doing this and trying to engage a fight is look at Jinx's items, and look at her pots, and then look at Twitch's items and pots. He has almost no sustain compared to the Jinx, so any fight that you can engage is probably going to be a favorable one. And I would advise trying to hit him and also manage to W the creep wave, because the faster that you can push this under his tower, the more poke that you can get him or get down on him for free. And that's good given the fact that he has no sustain, and also if you're pushing into tower and make him back, he'll have to miss out on a ton of creeps, which everyone probably already knows that. But yeah, so right here especially, I would step up into this brush and then just be ready to spell shield myself, because it forces the Twitch to miss creeps and it gives you the opportunity to land your QW, which Jinx can then follow up on. I wouldn't ever be back this far in a lane that I have an extreme advantage on. But that right there was smart. Wing into that back wave of creeps was smart, because you want to push this lane so that it's easier for the Jinx to harass the Twitch without missing out on creeps. And I mean, to a certain extent, it's up to your AD carry to push, but as a support like Morgana, you can definitely help with that just with your W. So you're playing this lane pretty well right now. One thing that, and I mean this is a little bit on your Jinx to help with, is that you should keep the lane pushing under tower. Like you should just try to keep it there and try to throw down as much harass on them as possible. Also, right here, you should be up in this brush. Like, you should be standing right here because you have a spell shield and you can stand in danger of a Thresh hook and a Thresh flay without any fear as Morgana. And by standing here, you put a lot of pressure on this Twitch to back off, because if he gets hit with one QW followed up by some Jinx damage, he basically has to leave lane. And I think that's the thing I like most about Morgana support is it's like a blitzcrank, in that if you land your Q and your ADC follows up properly, it is almost a guaranteed summoner's burnt, or you almost guarantee forcing the Twitch to leave lane. Also, one thing right there, that binding was good, but just make sure that when you're tossing out bindings and skill shots like that, make sure that your ADC is be aware of their positioning and make sure that they're in a position to follow up with you, because at that point, when you get here and you're tossing out bindings here onto two people, you could potentially have more damage traded back onto you then, since the Jinx isn't there to help you, you could potentially have more damage traded back onto you, since you're essentially fighting a 2v1, and that's never good. So just be up in the lane, definitely, but make sure you're not getting damage traded back onto you from two people when your ADC can't put damage on the Twitch. I'm going to check Facebook really quick. My phone told me you commented on something. Also, it's fine. I mean, you got a sweeper on your second back. To be perfectly honest, I didn't even notice. So, but yeah, and that was a really good job by you of getting a sweeper on your second back, since you were able to get Sightstone. Okay, so let me talk about that fight really quick. That's not necessarily on you, since you landed your skill shot that you were able to land on the Twitch. But one thing that you should be doing as a support here is your ADC should know that when you're half HP, you can't necessarily fight two full HP characters. Even though your ADC has a sustain advantage over the Twitch, she has no damage advantage over the Twitch in an all-out brawl. And so at that point, you should just be pinging her back. You should just be pinging her the hell back, and recognize the fact that you can't necessarily fight them when you're half HP in an all-out brawl, because she's just going to get... I mean, worst case scenario, you both die, but best case scenario, in an all-out extended brawl like that, when you guys have an HP disadvantage, one of you is going to die. That was a smart flash there to avoid the knockup. And I would actually go back right here. I mean, ignoring the fact that your Shyvana might need to be saved by you, I would have actually gone back right there, because you don't want to be coming to lane at a different time than your Morgana, simply because, or at a different time than your Jinx, simply because that means she loses out on a lot of lane pressure. And also, this is basically a free opportunity for you to back. Like, you could have been on your way back to lane right now. And having you in the lane getting gold and getting levels is really important up until level 6, because Morgana's level 6 is really, really strong. So just make sure to, when you have an opportunity to back like that for free, make sure to do it as fast as you possibly can, because you don't want to be missing out on XP and levels. And I know it is nice to give your XP, or give extra XP to the Jinx, but if you were there to get it with her, I think it would put you at a more of a lane advantage, just because if you can get 6 before them, you can brawl with these guys and you can take them. Also, I don't really understand why your Jinx went pickaxe first. And she should definitely be aware of the fact that the Twitch and the Thresh can just assassinate her ass. But again, had you backed earlier, she wouldn't have been alone in the lane, and she should not have been pushed up that far against a Thresh and a Twitch, just because, like, you have to be aware that Twitch can just camo cloak in and kill you with the support of his support. But so that's not on you for her bad decision making right there. But that said, if you had backed faster, then she probably wouldn't have died, just because you would have been with her, or at least a little bit behind her. Also, one thing to recognize here, it's not super important, but if the wave is going to get pushed to your tower really hard and you know it, like it is right here, you don't necessarily need to be in XP range and taking a harass like that. You don't need to be in XP range just because the wave is going to get to your tower eventually anyway, and you're going to get most of